Thanks, Sarah. One of the joys you have at being a past president of the Religion and Spirituality Interest Network is that you are immediately promoted to chair of the award committee. And this is always the best job in the world, and especially so this year. It is just such an honor for me to be able to introduce this year's award recipient, Shelly Christensen. Just a word about the award itself. For years, you may have known this award as the Henry J. M. Nouwen Award. Earlier this year, the network leadership that you just heard about began the process of reframing and eventually renaming of the award, all in order to bring it into a broader context and a more contemporary understanding of the spiritual expression of all people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Shelly's personal and professional influence at this intersection of faith and disability has been nothing short of profound. Shelly is an author, a speaker, she is a teacher, and she is a mentor. She was co-founder of the Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Month, and her outreach work through Inclusion Innovations has invited all of us, regardless of our particular religious identity or tradition, into a deeper and richer understanding of what it means to be a community of faith. In her most recent book, and if I was better prepared, I'd show you a copy. From longing to belonging, Shelly offers some great stories and some great strategies, but I think most important of all, a great challenge to every faith community that they might truly become, as she is fond of quoting, a house of prayer for all people. With that, I will simply say congratulations, Mazel Tov, to our 2021 recipient of the Religion and Spirituality Leadership Award, Shelly Christensen. Shelly?
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. And Suresh, congratulations to you on this award. And I loved your presentation yesterday, and I just want to learn more about your work. In the olden days, of course, when we were all in place in a building at a conference, I could look at each of my friends and colleagues who've been part of this journey. But today we're in that virtual conference room called Zoom, which means that other people are here too. My cousin Corey, my auntie Lane, just because they family is, and my husband Rick, of course. But I want to point out my friends in the Religion and Spirituality Interest Network: Bill Gaventa, Ann Masters, Debbie Fisher, Dave Morstead, Keith Dow, and Sarah Hall. You've all been my teachers and my guides, and you've let me be your teacher and guide too. No one does this work alone. My family makes my heart full. My amazing husband, Rick, who during our almost 42 years of marriage has supported and encouraged me when I left the beaten career path to pursue this work. Our sons and daughter-in-law, Aaron and Nancy, Jacob and Zach, and the 4 little people who allowed me membership in the club to which I've already paid my dues. Our grandchildren, Eli, Isaac, Anna, and Eve. I am so proud of my family. When Sarah Hall called me this spring to tell me that I was the recipient of this award, I was speechless, which, as those of you who know me, is as rare as a snowstorm in mid-July in Minnesota. I am so proud to stand on the shoulders of past recipients to be honored for work that ultimately I was called to do. Sorry, my nose itches. Of course. Lyda Merrill is on this webinar. She's a past recipient, and I also want to recognize all the past recipients of this award when it was known as the Henry Nouwen Award. 2 of them influenced me personally. Dr. Sarah Rubino Simon, who I love to call the godmother of Jewish education, inclusive education, and the late Barbara Newman, whose spirit, generosity, and wisdom will always be a part of this award. Rick and I have been blessed to raise three remarkable sons and to navigate the unplanned journey of having a child on the autism spectrum. I wouldn't be at this forum without the experiences that required my own growth and development in the role of a parent. I have a strong sense of social justice, fairness, and the basic human right to belong. So it wasn't a surprise when, appalled at how Jake was being treated by his public school teachers, I went to work to learn the laws. You know the laws, the IDEA, the ADA, all the alphabets, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. I became a fierce advocate looking for allies in his teachers and special educators and administrators. It was a battle just to prove to them that our son was capable of learning, excelling really without completing his homework assignments. I can't tell you how many times I received the Mrs. Christensen calls from school administrators and teachers. You can imagine that they weren't calling to tell me how well Jacob was doing. One of these Mrs. Christensen calls set the trajectory for my career when the assistant principal of Jake's junior high called to inform me that he was giving my son in-school suspension for poking a hole in a concrete wall with a pencil. I literally felt a shift from being the nice, agreeable mom to the fearless warrior. How do you propose my son receives his free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment and in school suspension? I demanded. Well, Jake went to all his own classes that day. And I learned the art of patience and collaboration, which works much, much better in parent-school interactions than anger does. The only place we didn't have an issue was at our synagogue religious school. Jake was just part of his classroom of peers, not treated any differently, not special. And the school and the synagogue is where everybody was celebrated. All three of our sons had a quality religious education and were part of this vibrant synagogue community. And that was our goal for our kids. And it turns out it was Bet Shalom's goal too. My own story and the story of inclusion of people with IDD in Jewish life converged. I changed careers, earning a master's degree in developmental disabilities, and then the universe and Jewish Family and Children's Service of Minneapolis provided the opportunity to start a new program working with synagogues, schools, and agencies to develop ways to move people with IDD from invisibility to visibly in, as we used to say, so they too could be part of Jewish life. Every part of me felt called to this new work. I was grateful that I had embraced patience as a parent because I needed to be still and patient as I listened to resistance from synagogues and agencies. We can't afford it. We can't let those kids disrupt the education of the others. Sure, we'd like to be inclusive, but it's just not on our agenda. And my all-time favorite, resistance. We don't have people with disabilities here. Open your eyes, I wanted to shout. You may not see them in the pews and in your school, but people with disabilities and mental health conditions are part of the community. They are the invisible ones. They are the ones that, in your ultimate wisdom, have been barred from belonging. I didn't shout. Instead, I met with each organization where they were at. You can't shove change down people's throats if you want them to become allies, I learned. The faith community disability inclusion movement has been growing for some time in the academic world, in education, in provider agencies and congregations, in home and community-based services. The impetus, though, comes from people with disabilities and mental health conditions and those who love them. People don't want faith communities doing them a favor by letting them attend a service, a special religious school class, or life cycle preparations. People want to be accepted and respected and supported to live the spiritual, religious, and communal life they need and choose. The great Kabbalist, Rabbi Isaac Luria, in the 16th century, taught that everything God created has a spark of divine energy that constitutes its essence and soul. When people utilize something toward a godly end, They bring to light this divine spark, manifesting and realizing the purpose for which it was created. Can we, if you're not muted, would you please mute? Thank you. Thank you. Rabbi Luria taught that before creation, God's essence and light needed to be harnessed or contracted to make space for creation to begin. This is called tzimtzum, contraction in Hebrew. After contraction, God created vessels in this empty space and poured God's light into them. But the vessels were not strong enough to hold the power of God's light, and they shattered, and they were dispersed across the space. Tikkun is the process of gathering the sparks of God's light together, bringing the shards of broken vessels back to wholeness. This is perhaps our purpose. Tikkun olam, in Hebrew meaning to repair the world, by doing all we can to bring the shards of light back together to a place of purpose, of meaning, of fulfillment, of contribution, a place where each of us matters. Each person who sits on the margins of a faith community and religious or spiritual participation represents a shard of light waiting to be reunited with the vessel from which they emerged. How long do people have to wait? The clock is ticking in their lives. Why do people with disabilities need an invitation? I contemplated this question for many years. What would move faith communities to understand that people living with a disability or a mental health condition just wanted to belong like anyone else? I adapted my entire approach with faith communities. It woke people up. They identified with wanting to belong. They realized people with disabilities weren't someone's mitzvah project or charity project. Rather, they were people who were called to perform mitzvot, to contribute, participate, be valued, and be known, and to belong like anyone else. I wrote my book, From Longing to Belonging, to help people understand that having a sense of belonging is the foundation to being an inclusive, diverse, and equitable community. The structure, practices, and policies of inclusion are still very much a part of this work. It's the how, but belonging, that's the why. The why of inclusion is unique to each of us. The why of inclusion is belonging. In Jewish liturgy, we recite a prayer thanking God for bringing us to this moment in time. I'd like to offer the Shehechianu prayer in appreciation for all of us coming together and bringing our light to this forum, to each other, and to our world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed is God, creator and ruler of the universe, who brings us to this moment, empowering us to make our world whole. And in being God's partner, the potential, possibilities, and purpose of each of God's creations will be revealed, accepted, and nurtured. Amen. And thank you so much for this incredible honor.
Congratulations, Shelly. Wonderful. Well, we are so honored to have you as a part of our group with all the work you've done and you continue to do. So thank you so much.